Hi guys, today I will read Annual Threat Assessment of the United States Intelligence Community. Why do I think that's interesting? Because for some people it can provide actionable information. Think of it as a ultimate spoiler alert for the world events. So it's kind of crystal ball, which can show you which part of the world is hot and which is not. So let's start. Unclassified report downloaded from here from site of the Office of Director of National Intelligence. So let's start from forward. During next year, the United States faces an increasingly fragile global order strained by accelerating strategic competition among major powers. And ambitious but anxious China, confrontational Russia, regional power Iran, and more capable non-state actors are challenging long-standing rules of international system, as well as the United States primacy within it. New technologies, public health sector issues, environmental changes, which are becoming more frequent, often have global impact and are harder to forecast. Okay, Gaza crisis, Hamas, okay, terrorism, illicit drugs. Those are issues which we are going to read about in this unclassified report. China has continued to directly compete with the United States and its allies to alter the rule-based global order. But China is experiencing demographic and economical challenges. Russia is aggressive in Ukraine and remains a threat to the rule-based international order. Iran will remain an additional menace. North Korea will expand its weapons of mass destruction capabilities. Conflicts, regional and localized, and regional and localized instability, such as from Hamas attack against Israel and subsequent invasion of Gaza, will demand United States attention. Okay. Around the world, multiple states are facing rising and in some cases unsustainable debt burdens. Economic spillovers from the war in Ukraine and still continue to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, there are universal issues which are requiring cooperative global solutions, such as AI, biotechnology, etc., climate change, food and water insecurity. Yeah, so let's split issues United States are facing into two groups. Universal issues, which according to United States intelligence community affect humanity and its development in general, such as biotechnologies, biosecurity, AI, macro electronics and quantum developments, risk of humanitarian disasters caused by extreme weather, and not only by extreme weather, other things, and issues which are relevant to United States only, such a questionable primacy of United States in the world. So global order is restrained further by competition between major and regional powers, and public health issues, illicit drugs, etc. So there are two types of actors covered in this unclassified report: state actors and non-state actors, such as private military companies and terroristic organizations and other. So let's start from state actors first. There are four of them which US are concerned about. So China, which wants to suppress the United States and gain neighbors' sympathy. Russia, which directly threatens the United States to assert leverage globally. Iran, who wants regional power, and North Korea, which is expanding weapons of mass destruction capabilities. Yeah, so let's start from China first. China views United States measures against it as effort to contain its rise as a threat to China Communist Party rule and ambitions. China gets more active in South China Sea and East China Sea. China is expanding influence abroad, supporting Russia in its war in Ukraine. Also, China is advancing technologically, including space. China is advancing technologically almost in any field, but space might be the most contested area with the United States during next several years, maybe. But China is experiencing demographic and economical problems. So what do we have in the report? Uh, yeah, China views Washington's competitive measures against Beijing as part of broader US diplomatic, economic, military, and technological effort to contain its rise, prevent public People Republic of China from achieving its regional and global power ambitions. China's growth almost certainly will continue slowing thanks to demographic challenges and a collapse in consumer and investor sentiment due in large part of Beijing's heavy-handed policies. In particular, China's policies have led many countries and businesses to accelerate de-risking in key sectors and to limit exports of sensitive technology to China. Well, Beijing uses this wall of government tools to compel other to, I don't know how to spell it word, so I will skip it, to its preferences, including its assertions of sovereignty over Taiwan. Well, Taiwan is a significant potential flashpoint for confrontation between the PRC and the United States, as Beijing claims that the United States is using Taiwan to undermine China's rise. Yeah, in South China Sea, Beijing will continue to use its growing military and other maritime capabilities to try to under and intimidate rival claimants. South China Sea and also in East China Sea, China is pressing Japan over contested areas. Beijing aims to expand its influence abroad and be viewed as a champion of global development. And China is promoting an alternative to existing, often Western-dominated international development and security forums in favor of norms that support state sovereignty and place political stability over individual rights. Also, China is supporting Moscow, providing economic and security assistance to Russia's war in Ukraine through support to Russia's defense industrial base. Uh, yeah, it can be seen by significant rise of exports of goods with potential military use. So it rose more than threefold since 2022. Okay, but China has economical problems also. Slowing economy could create resource constraints in the long run and force it to prioritize spending between social issues, industrial policy, military, and overseas lending, replacing the focus on maximizing GDP growth while also attempting to mitigate the threat of United States sanctions and unhappiness with semiconductor export controls technology. China seeks to become a world science and technology superpower and to use this technological superiority for economic, political, and military gain. So Beijing is prioritizing advanced power and energy, AI, biotechnology, quantum information science, and semiconductors. So yeah, a lot of investment was made there were made. So intellectual property acquisition and theft, talent recruitment, scientific academic collaboration, illicit procurements, and also China is investing a lot of money into emerging industries such as AI, semiconductors, biotechnology, and new materials. And also have created 7 nanometer chip. Okay, weapons of mass destructions. China probably has completed construction of more than 300 new intercontinental ballistic missile silos and loaded some of them. Also, Beijing is focusing on building a fully modernized national defense military force by 2035. It lacks recent warfighting experience. It can probably affect leaders' willingness to initiate a conflict. Yeah, also China is creating hypersonic glide vehicles and fifth generation fighter aircraft, developing base in Djibouti, and also other military facilities in Rim naval-based Cambodia, Burma, Cuba, Guinea, Pakistan, etc. Also in United Arab, even in United Arab Emirates. The space is, as I have mentioned before, the hot contested area between US and China. China will probably achieve broadcast status in all fields, almost in all fields related to space. So People Liberation Army continues to improve upon to close the perceived gap between itself and the US. China is trying to develop an alternative bloc to the United States-led Artemis Accords. I will attach the link to Artemis Accords. If you don't know what is it, you can read it later. But it's simply accords which are saying that you don't need to kill each other. Even if we are in state of the war, for example, if we having a war, we still don't need to cut each other oxygen pipes at the international space stations and etc. So it's a kind of code of conduct in a space. China is developing its own low Earth orbit satellite internet service like Starlink to compete with Western commercial satellite internet services. Developing counter space weapons capabilities intended to target the United States and allied satellites. Also ground-based counter space capabilities and anti-satellite missiles. Yeah. China remains the most active, persistent cyber threat to United States government, sectors, and private sector. Mm. Yeah, and China is expanding its global covert influence posture to better support the China Communist Party's goals, promote pro-China narratives using fake TikTok accounts, targeting candidates from both political parties during the United States midterm elections, monitoring Chinese students, and influencing research by US academics and think tank experts. And China may attempt to influence the United States elections in 2024 at some level. China is rapidly expanding and improving its AI and big data analytics capabilities for intelligence operations. Will continue to expand it. But China is facing several challenges. So domestic problems, domestic problems. So China will not be able to solve them with Xi Jinping prioritization of security and stability over economy and individual rights. So Beijing growing national security focus has generated new laws on data security and anti-espionage targeting foreign firms, driving a crackdown on PRC technology companies. The second problem is corruption. And anti-corruption efforts probably never will uproot underlying problems because of the unrivaled power of top party officials. Third problem is demography. Birth rate continues to decline to lead to shrinking of labor force, and also China have generated widespread global criticism because of multiple human rights abuses. So that's it for China. Well, Russia. Russia is influencing post-Soviet space, Middle East, and Africa, and trying to undermine United States and allies. Also strengthening ties with China, Iran, and North Korea, but weakened by losses at war, by sanctions, and a flight of human capital. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has resulted in enormous damage at home and abroad, but Russia remains a resilient and capable adversary across a wide range of domains and seeks to project and defend its interests globally and to undermine the United States and the West. Russia doesn't want a direct military conflict between US and itself, between NATO and Russia. Putin has abandoned Russia's geopolitical, economic, and military revival and damaged its international reputation with the large-scale invasion of Ukraine. Moscow is deeply engaged with Beijing and will continue to employ all applicable sources of national power to advance its interests and try to undermine the United States and its allies. Long-term competitiveness has diminished in comparison to the pre-war outlook. Russia is offsetting its decline in relations with the West by expanding ties to China, Iran, North Korea, and key global South countries. I think that's about India and some countries in Africa also. Well, what do we know? What does this report say about conflict in Ukraine? Russia has suffered more military losses than at any time since World War II, roughly 300,000 casualties and thousands of tanks and armored combat vehicles. By the way, Russia's defense industry is significantly ramping up production of a panoply. I don't know what is it of long-range strike weapons, artillery munitions, and other capabilities that will allow it to sustain a long, high-intensity war if necessary. Well, Moscow's military forces will face a multi-year recovery after suffering extensive equipment and personnel losses during the Ukraine conflict. But air and naval forces will continue to provide Moscow with some global power projection capabilities. Russia will rely on private military and security companies, PMSCs, and paramilitary groups to hide Moscow's hand in sensitive operations and to project influence and power in the Middle East and Africa. Well, weapons of mass destruction. Russia will continue to modernize its nuclear weapon capabilities. Will continue to pose a chemical biological weapon threat. Russia is pretty active in cyberspace. Maintains its ability to target critical infrastructure, including underwater cables, and will remain a serious foreign influence threat because of its wide-ranging efforts to try to divide Western alliances, undermine United States global standing, and sow domestic discord, including among voters inside the United States and US partners around the world. And Russia probably will attempt to affect the election in ways that best supports its interests and goals, and may use new technologies such as generative AI to improve their capabilities and reach into Western audiences. Space. Russia will remain a key space competitor despite facing difficulties from the effects of additional international sanctions and export controls. The challenges. Moscow probably needs to balance increased military spending with the need for additional revenue without overburdening private and state-backed firms. Faces long-term problems, including lack of foreign investment, particularly in the energy sector. Yeah, that's it. Iran. Iran is a growing regional power. Iran is strengthening ties with Russia and also can produce a nuclear device if decided to do so. Iran doesn't have a device right now, but can produce it if needed. Iran also is developing technologically, but struggling economically, and Iran's economic struggles are pretty severe. Iran will continue to threaten US interests, allies, and influence in the Middle East and intends to entrench its emerging status as a regional power while minimizing threats to the regime and the risk of direct military conflict. booster ties with Moscow, seek to use the Gaza conflict to denounce Israel, decry its role in the region, and try to dissuade other Middle Eastern states from warming ties with Israel. The economic, political, and societal seeds of popular discontent are still present in Iran. Will continue to directly threaten US persons in the Middle East and remains committed to its decade-long effort to develop surrogate networks inside the United States. Will continue arming and aiding its allies to threaten the United States, as well as backing Hamas and others who seek to block a peace settlement between Israel and the Palestinians. Well, Iranian UAVs attacks against US forces in Iraq and Syria had been recorded already. And also, Iran is indirectly responsible for Houthi missile and UAV attacks. Weapons of mass destruction. Iran uses its nuclear program to build negotiating leverage and respond to perceived international pressure. Military. Iran has started taking delivery of advanced trainer aircraft and probably will seek to acquire new conventional weapon systems such as advanced fighter aircraft, helicopters, and main battle tanks. However, budgetary constraints will slow the pace and scale of acquisition. Iran's work on space launch vehicles, including its Seymour, would shorten the timeline to produce the intercontinental ballistic missile because the systems use similar technologies. Iran is a cyber threat to US infrastructure. Ahead of United States election in 2024, Iran may attempt to conduct influence operations aimed at United States interests, including targeting United States elections, having demonstrated a willingness and capability to do so in the past. Challenges. Iran's economy continues to struggle amidst high inflation, sanctions pressure, and depreciating currency. Most wages are unable to keep pace with the higher prices, leading to declines in households' spending power, and also water becomes scarcer. Um, Iran's dependency on oil export revenues and slowing economic growth in China, Iran's largest buyer of oil, portend weaker revenues for Tehran and potentially higher budget deficits. Well, that's it about Iran. North Korea. North Korea is strengthening ties with China, Russia, and continue to pursue nuclear and conventional military capabilities, but also struggling economically, and living conditions in North Korea are worsening. North Korea also shipping munitions to Russia. North Korea unveiled a purported tactical nuclear warhead and claimed it could be mounted on at least 8 delivery systems, including an unmanned underwater vehicle and cruise missiles. North Korea showcased new UAV systems that appear similar to the United States Reaper and Global Hawk, but the technical capability probably is limited compared to the United States systems. North Korea launched this ballistic missile submarine following years of modifying an older Mao class submarine. New solid propellant missile that claims is an intermediate range ballistic missile equipped with a maneuverable hypersonic re-entry vehicle. Launched three SLVs, two failed, and the third successfully placed a satellite on a satellite in orbit. North Korea is active in cyberspace also. Cyber program will pose a sophisticated and agile espionage, cybercrime, and attack threat. The Kim regime has prioritized centralizing authority above its population and its economy with brutal crackdowns and serious mismanagement of agriculture that probably are worsening living conditions. Crackdown restricts livelihoods and promotes inefficient state controls, contributing to food shortages and leading to violent crime. Well, that's it about North Korea. And now this report offers us the information about live conflicts, both interstate and intrastate. Conflicts, particularly those that disrupt global trade and investment flows, might lead to rising energy prices and increased economic fragility, even in countries that are not directly involved or are far removed from the conflict. Gaza conflict. Israel will face mounting international pressure because of the dire humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. Iran has encouraged and enabled its various proxies and partners, including Hezbollah, Iran-backed groups in Iraq and Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen to conduct strikes against Israeli or United States interests in the region. Hezbollah is liberating this pressure in Israel from the north. In Iraq, Iranian-aligned militants almost certainly will continue attacks against United States forces in Iraq and Syria. The Houthis continued ballistic missile, cruise missile, and UAV attacks against merchant vessels on the Eastern Red Sea, which should disrupt international shipping, and on Israel create a real risk of broader escalation. Okay, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State. But also we have something positive. A different, more moderate government is a possibility in Israel. Interstate conflict. Beijing's efforts to try to assert sovereignty claims over islands in the South and East China Seas will result in persistently high tension between PRC and its neighboring competing claimants and increased opportunities for miscalculation, even though Beijing probably prefers to avoid direct conflict. Coast Guard used water cannons and floating barriers to block Philippine access to disputed areas in the South China Sea. There is a tension between China and Japan over Senkaku Islands. There is also tension between India and China, between India and Pakistan. Tension between Azerbaijan and Armenia is kind of declining because Azerbaijan had taken Nagorno-Karabakh region, and the volatility is reduced, but the issue is still live, still actual. interstate issues. The Balkans. The Western Balkans probably will face an increased risk of localized inter-ethnic violence during 2024. There are clashes between Serb nationalists and Kosovar authorities. And Afghanistan, the Taliban will continue to implement restrictive measures, carry out public punishments, crack down on protests, and prevent most women and girls from attending secondary school and university. Prolonged conflict heightens the risk of conflict spreading beyond Sudan's borders, external actors joining the fray, and civilians facing death and displacement in Sudan. Ethiopia, Sahel. Many coastal West African governments are facing potential coups because of uh, lingering civil military strains, growing public dissatisfaction with their failure to deliver improved governance and living standards. And at the same moment, Russia has opportunistically capitalized on domestic turmoil, offering rhetorical and, in some instances, substantive support to those seeking to oust regimes. Haiti. Conditions will remain unpredictable as weak government institutions lose their grip on power to gain territorial control. Haitian National Police has been unable to counter gang violence. It has been plagued by resource issues, corruption challenges, and limited training. There are problems in Venezuela also. More than 7.7 million Venezuelans have left the country since 2017. Part of them are living in Latin America and the Caribbean. More than 80% of Venezuelans have incomes below the poverty line. It's also the significant contributor to migration. Transnational issues. Even there are many contested spaces such as disruptive technology, weapons of mass destruction. There is also room for cooperation. And shared domains include environmental change and extreme weather, health security, and migration. Contested spaces, disruptive technology, new technologies, particularly in the fields of AI and biotechnology, are being developed and are proliferating at a rate that makes it challenging for companies and governments to shape norms regarding civil liberties, privacy, and ethics. Advances in AI and new machine learning models are moving AI into its industrial age, with potentially huge economic impacts for both winners and followers. China is pursuing AI for smart cities, mass surveillance, healthcare, drug discovery, and intelligent weapon platforms. Chinese AI firms are already world leaders in voice and image recognition, video analytics, and mass surveillance technologies. First researchers have described the application of generative AI to drug discovery as revolutionary. Russia is using AI to create deepfakes and is developing the capability to fool experts. Innovators in synthetic biology probably will control new military and commercial applications and hold trillions of dollars in production capacity, including supply chains for products that vary from disease-resistant crop seeds to metals to pharmaceuticals. Countries such as China and the United States that lead biotechnological breakthroughs in fields such as precision medicine, synthetic biology, big data, and biomimetic materials will not only drive industry growth but also international competition and will exert substantial influence over the global economy for generations. Foreign states are advancing digital and physical means to repress individual critics and diaspora communities abroad, including the United States. During the next several years, governments are likely to exploit new and more intrusive technologies, including generative AI, to transnational repression. PRC expatriates have faced accusations of false bomb threats in countries around the world, resulting in local police investigations, revoked visas, placement on travel blacklists, and sometimes detention as means to harass dissidents overseas. Weapons of mass destruction. China and Russia are seeking to ensure strategic stability with the United States through the growth and development of larger weapons, of a range of weapon capabilities. Also, North Korea continues to threaten to conduct a seventh nuclear test, and the potential for heightened tension between Pakistan and India could increase the risk of nuclear escalation. Chemical weapons. Most state actors could use chemicals in operations against dissidents, defectors, and other perceived enemies of the state, protesters under the guise of quelling domestic unrest or against their own civilian or refugee population. Biological weapons. Rapid advances in dual-use technology, including bioinformatics, synthetic biology, nanotechnology, and genomic editing, could enable development of novel biological threats. Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea probably maintain the capability to produce and use pathogens and toxins. China and Russia have proven adept at manipulating the information space to reduce trust and confidence in countermeasures, and United States biotechnology and research. Shared domains, climate-related disasters in low-income countries, and economic losses linked to such extreme weather, competition over access and economic resources in the Arctic. At sea ice recedes, increases the risk of miscalculation, particularly while there is military tension between Russia and the other seven countries with Arctic territory. El Nino related events. El Nino, here we can just replace it with global warming. Global warming related events are projected to reduce global economic growth, resulting in more than 3 trillion in lost GDP during the rest of the decade. Insurance losses from catastrophes have increased 250% during the past 30 years. Global warming weather patterns are likely to exacerbate risk to human health, primarily but not exclusively in low and middle income countries. Health security. Predicted shortage of at least 10 million healthcare workers by 2030 will occur primarily in low and middle income countries. Drivers for infectious disease emergence are on the rise, including deforestation, wildlife harvesting and trade, mass food production, and lack of international consensus on biosafety norms. Migration, conflict, violence, political instability, poor economic conditions, and national disasters will continue to displace a growing number of people within their own international borders and internationally. Number of individuals internally displaced from their homes in 2022 was more than 3 times higher than the average of the previous 10 years. Mhm. So, I think we are done with transnational issues. And now we can talk about non-state actors. Transnational organized crime, transnational criminal organizations threaten the United States and allied public health systems, exploit the international financial system, and degrade the safety and security of the United States and partner nations. Illicit fentanyl will continue to pose a major threat to the health of Americans. Also, TSOs defraud individuals, businessmen, and government programs while laundering billions of dollars of illicit proceeds through United States financial institutions. Transnational organized criminals involved in ransomware operations and transnational organized criminals involved in ransomware operations are improving their attacks, exporting funds, disrupting critical services, and exposing sensitive data. Absent cooperative law enforcement from Russia or other countries that provide cyber criminals a safe haven or permissive environment, mitigation efforts will remain limited. Transnational criminal organization and criminal gangs undermine the rule of law through exploiting corruption networks, committing acts of violence, and overpowering regional security forces. Also, they are involved in human trafficking. Well, next section is global terrorism. United States persons and interests at home and abroad will face an ideologically diverse threat from terrorism. Yeah, from Islamic State, Al Qaeda, Hezbollah. Islamic State will remain a centralized global organization, even as it has been forced to rely on regional branches in response to successive leadership losses during the past new years. Oh yeah, ISIS Kharastan is exactly those guys who performed a terroristic act in Crocus in Moscow. Al-Qaeda regional affiliates on the African continent and Yemen will sustain the global network as the group maintains its strategic intent to target the United States and US citizens. Lebanese Hezbollah will continue to develop its global terrorist capabilities as a complement to the group's growing conventional military capabilities in the region. Since the start of war in Gaza in October 2023, Hezbollah has conducted attacks on Israel's northern border to tie down Israeli forces as they seek to eliminate Hamas in Gaza. Hezbollah probably will continue to conduct provocative actions such as rocket launches against Israel throughout the conflict. There are also issues with not organized crime and not organized terrorism. International racially and ethnically motivated violent extremist movement, in particular motivated by white supremacy, will continue to foment violence across Europe, South America, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, inspiring the lone actor or small cell attacks that pose a significant threat to United States person. Since early 2022, we have identified five RMVE attacks and five suspected RMVE attacks, killing in total 27 people. And what about private military and security companies? Well, in this report we have information about the fact that number of such organizations is growing. There will be a lot of there will be many more private military and security companies. Private military security companies have become an essential component of modern military operation, and the demand for their services is likely to grow. The largest part of the industry are corporations who provide for high security services for commercial interests or states. However, China, Russia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates see private military security companies as a valuable tool in their arsenal for either advancing or protecting their interests abroad. Well, that's it.